Welcome back. Welcome back to the course, and welcome back to this segment that we're working on with really getting your work in the world and continuing with marketing. And what we'll be doing today, and what you've been doing all along, and what you'll continue to do in the future, is you're continuing to do your personal work. And by the way, that's an infinite game. It's a never-ending process. A true evolutionary knows that really everything that's happening out there is just an object in your awareness. And that's the game that you play. So anytime you're triggered, then it's a good idea to look back on those timeline therapy segments and see what there is to learn there. What resources you need to add to that particular situation to diffuse that so that you can become a richer tapestry of yourself. And you're distinguishing or continuing to distinguish your ideal clientele. While you probably already have that pretty well set, there will be times where you'll come along with a client and you'll realize there's just a certain quality or characteristic that you don't necessarily want to be working with, or perhaps there's a certain demographic that simply doesn't work for you. I have a couple that I discovered along the way. It's like, oh, right, this person who's had this kind of life experience, I probably just, it's not going to work. And for me, there's always a huge difference between somebody who's never provided for themselves financially. They've always been taken care of. They've never had to work or anything like that. And somebody who has, or somebody who owns their own business is just a joy to work with because of the kind of responsibility they have to take. So you may or may not need to create those distinctions, especially if you're working in the area of relationships or something like that. But you may realize that, oh gosh, I don't want to be working with people who X, or actually, I'd much rather prefer to work with people who Y. So keep that in mind. That it's always up for reworking, but you should have that pretty well set by this point. You're honing your offering, and you hopefully have this fairly well set already. You've followed the steps that were laid out in the segment that we did on creating your offering. But there's a few areas that people get tripped up on. I want to just make sure that we cover these. It's best that you offer a single offering, and I'm pretty sure I explained why, but there seems to be some confusion about this. If you have more than one service that you're providing, and certainly if you have more than one service you're providing to more than one type of target market, then you're going to create confusion, and people are going to end up not making a decision to contact you, especially on your website. And there's also this perception that you're not really an expert at anything. You're just competent at a lot of things. This is particularly tricky if you are trying to market to, say, a corporate clientele as well as a personal clientele. It's just not advisable. It's ineffective, and if you want to do that, that's fine, but you want to create a separate website for that. There's some studies that they've done, and this will be relevant for our email marketing lesson, and that is that if there's more than really one thing that you're talking about, then people get confused. If there's three things, they actually think that they have to make a decision, actually make a commitment. And this is particularly interesting for email marketing. And we'll get to that in this lesson. But you're continuing to hone your offering. And you're, of course, mastering evolutionary sales. And this truly is an infinite game. There's always something you could be more effective at. I still troubleshoot after, even though I created the system and the system seemed pretty set to me about 6 years ago, I still see where I could improve, or at least keep my attention on making sure that I follow the steps precisely. And for that, there's no replacement for practice and practice and practice. And you're creating your web presence, or you already have created your web presence. And you're integrating your social media identity, and that's what we're going to continue to do today, both of those last two. And so first we're going to talk about WordPress templates and themes, and then we're going to get into TweetDeck, which I think is the most elegant tool to use to integrate your social media identity. And then we're going to get into the meat of email marketing. So First, let's get into WordPress templates and themes. Okay, so there's a few theme clubs that I'm going to recommend. And basically, a theme club is something that you subscribe to, and you can download all of their themes, all of their templates. And some of them are better than others. Some of them have different features. And what I'm going to do is recommend there's 4 that I recommend, and I'm going to tell you why I go with the one that I go with for my own sites. So the first one is Elegant Themes, and it's simply elegantthemes.com. And they have a ton of different styles. And here you can view the themes. You can see all the different types of themes, and you can preview those by simply clicking on preview on any number of these. And some of them you'll go, oh gosh, no, I don't want my site to look like that. And some of them you'll feel right at home with. But what's important though is with a theme club like this, you get to download all of them. So, they might have 30 or some odd, a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen themes that you can download and tinker with. And of course, you can also view the features, and some of the more professional themes, they will have features. And Elegant Themes has its own separate e-panel, and they have a little video here about that, and you can check that out. So they have really good customization options on the back end, and it's one of the ones that I recommend. And that is Elegant Themes. So I'll let you discover that on your own. The next one is Rocket Theme, and the reason I recommend Rocket Theme, and this is Rocket Theme, and again, very different, look and feel on some of their stuff as well. And you can demo it. You want to make sure these guys create templates for most of the major platforms. So they have a Joomla club, a WordPress club, a Drupal club, and a Magento club. And my understanding is Magento is for very serious e-commerce. Don't quote me on that, but that's my recollection. But you want to go into the WordPress club. So we'll go ahead and you can go ahead and look at the club details. Now, depending on what you purchase here, it depends on how many you get and how many websites you can have them on. So you just want to keep that in mind. Now, of course, you can keep them past the time that this expires. You just don't get free updates or support. So that's the thing to remember about a club. And another one that I'll recommend, now these really you either need to buy one of them or all of them. So they have like a developer package for $300. You get all of their templates, and it could be that you find one of these that is close enough, and you want to have a developer just tweak it a little bit for you. But there's a bunch of different themes, and I find these to be nice and simple and straightforward and clean. So it's one option for you out there, and they just have solid themes, and I would be remiss in not mentioning them. And here's a view of a bunch of them, so you can just look at that. These are more straightforward. There's the Architect, which for some reason I've always liked. I don't know why. But as you can see, here the single theme is $57. Now you could use that on multiple sites, it says here, but that's another option for you. And then this is Utheme, YOO. And these are the guys that I use for all of my stuff pretty much. There's a few reasons I like them. First of all, they have an incredible array of templates. So, for a small fee, you can have all of their templates. So when I say a small fee, it's probably something in the area of $150. I don't know what their current prices are. You'll have to look at that yourself. But I also just love the way they have the framework set out and the layouts for you. So, of course, you don't have to use all this stuff. Some of this might be a little overwhelming, but they have a wonderful ways in which you can modify. And so here's look at module variations. They call them modules, but we will call them widgets on WordPress. And so here's a bunch of possible locations and also styles. And so they have that built in to their theme club, and I just happen to love these guys, and their code is really clean. So they're perfectionists. Their themes also load the fastest because of the Warp framework that they use, which is unique, and they use a lot of HTML5, so it's incredibly fast. And one of the things that I love about them, and I'll just show you on the back end, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out, but that's UTheme. Those are the guys I use. So here is a legacy site of mine. This is evolutionaryawareness.com. It's a site, it's in incredible neglect and disrepair. But this is a version of the same theme I'm using on the site that you're on currently. And this is Nano. And I'm going to go on the back, and I've already logged in just to make this faster. But so here are some of the widgets that I've installed. So there's they have a logo widget, there's a search box, breadcrumb, side R, side B, sidebar A, sidebar B, the footer. And here's what's great about these is that you can, for instance, here's pages navigation. This is a widget I created, and you already know how to do that. Well, I can choose which pages that appears on. So it could be that there's some pages I don't want that particular widget to appear on. So I can either select one, I can select all, or I can, of course, multi-select and have it on whichever pages I want to have it on. So that kind of flexibility I just happen to love. Now, Nano is also, they have their own theme options. Of course, YOO, has their own theme options. And you could explore those as well. It has a built-in mobile theme, which you'll find very valuable, especially in today's market. You really must have your site being able to be easily viewed on a mobile device. So they've already got that built in. So it's simply, you simply click yes to enable it. So I love UTheme for so many reasons. And they're the ones I use on my own site. So with that, that's all I'm going to say about themes. They're pretty easy to install. They all come with their own instructions on how to install them. So I will leave you to your own devices with that. And for now, that is it with themes. And we're going to pause here, and in just a couple of seconds, we're getting into TweetDeck. Okay, so TweetDeck. First, if you haven't already gone there, we're just going to go ahead and go to tweetdeck.com. And Twitter actually bought them recently. Well, recently, a few months back. But as I mentioned, they're available on all platforms. So they're available on the desktop, regardless of your platform, for the iPhone, the Android, and there's also a Chrome widget for the browser, but it's not nearly as robust as the actual desktop version. So we're going to work with the desktop version. And you're just going to download it here. And I've already, of course, done that. So we're going to go ahead and just open TweetDeck. And as it loads, I'm going to explain a few things also. Even if you're already using this segment will be valuable to you in terms of best practices and how to best use this. So first of all, the first thing you want to do is you want to actually set up accounts on this if you haven't already. You'll also want to create a TweetDeck account if you haven't already, so that you can do scheduling and other things and sync your accounts. So adding an account is as simple as clicking right here. You can also simply go to Preferences, You could also click on this little wrench right here for settings. And all you need to do is to simply add a new account. And then here are the accounts that they currently support. And so what you want to do at the very minimum is you want to have Twitter and you want to have Facebook added. So you can also add multiple Twitter accounts, I believe. And really the two that you want to be focusing on are Twitter and Facebook. Google Plus, if you're there already, first of all, nobody's really sure how that's going to shake out for marketing. And second of all, it is not quite done in terms of them releasing their API, which means the developers can't actually integrate Google Plus into their software yet. And that should happen soon, but for the most part, those of us who are on Google Plus like the fact that it doesn't look like Twitter or Facebook, and there's much more in-depth conversations there. But you want to add Facebook and Twitter, and it'll ask you, it'll ask you to verify that. So you're going to need to enter in your username and your password. It's pretty straightforward, and it'll verify your details and add the account. And then what happens is then you've got these options up here. Like I've also got StatusNet, which is my, a while back when Facebook wasn't allowing you to download your own data. I actually got, my account was suspended for a while, or there was some sort of issue with me not being able to log into my account for about 3 weeks. It finally got resolved. But what it did teach me is that I needed my own database. I wanted my stuff in my own database, the stuff that I say in my own database. So I created a website, jasonthemclain.com, using an open source updater, status updater called StatusNet. And it's not something you need to worry about, but that's what this strange looking icon is here. But these are highlighted or not, or they're grayed out. And that's essentially where you're posting to. So I like to highlight them both typically. And what's most valuable in TweetDeck is its ability to schedule and also your ability to see everything in one screen. And I also like the interface much more than, say, Hootsuite, which is another fine option that you can use to schedule it. But Hootsuite, I find the interface to be just a mangled mess, to be honest. And this is a nice, clean, elegant interface. And so let's just say something here. And then you click on the little watch over here and you just schedule for when you want to have that actually go out. And I'm going to say that it goes out, whenever it goes out. And you're going to want to explore this yourself. But in terms of best practices, as you can see, I've got nothing scheduled right now. But in terms of best practices for this, I've found it depends on what you're doing and what you're marketing at the time. But there's a few things that you want to do and you want to make sure you don't do with this. And first of all, there's an article on the blog on this site. And it talks about the art of the tweet repeat. I'm actually going to switch over there right now just so that you can see it. And here's the article. You can easily find this on my site. It's not on the first page, but I think it's on the second page. You can also just search for it. Just social media and down here, there's a ton of resources here. If you haven't already read this, then please do. But down here, there's a couple of things, and Guy Kawasaki has a brilliant strategy for this. And if you're not familiar with Guy Kawasaki, I recommend that you follow him, whatever he's creating. He's one of those just genius new media kind of guys. And he talks about the art of the tweet repeat, and we'll click on that. But he actually has a strategy. And because of time zones and really the stream, and I'm sure you know this, I mean, how often do you, when you go to Facebook, go look past the first or second screen into the past in terms of what's actually happening with people? And I know most people don't go much past the second page. Maybe a little bit longer if you're on your mobile device. I've found that that is true for some people, certainly me. But for the most part, it's sort of what's most recently happened. And so you might be putting out a piece of marketing, but nobody's seen it, or very few people have seen it, or only the third of the people who would normally see it see it. And so he has this strategy. What he does is he puts the same thing out 4 times every 8 hours in sequence. And of course, you can schedule that in TweetDeck. And what that means is that piece of marketing hits all the eyeballs in every time zone at the ideal time. So go ahead and check out that article. And, some people will wonder about that. And I think he actually starts it out by, saying that, in fact, right here, he's been asked about it and sell them in an unemotional way. And, he has a strategy behind it. And it's a strategy that works. He's one of those guys that only does what works, and he's a genius at it. And it's going to upset people, but that's fine. For the most part, you want to make sure that you are able to expose yourself to as many people as possible. So what I'll often do when I'm marketing something in using TweetDeck is I will have a bunch of quotes that might be relevant, or there might be themed quotes, and I'll interleave those with the marketing that happens about every 6 or 8 hours. And I use a similar strategy. He has a little bit more dialed in than I did. And I've been using that for a while. And it really does work. It works for several reasons, not the least of which is that, even if they did see it, maybe they forget about it. So it's not a bad idea for people to see it twice. And then there's time zones and all that stuff that we'll get into even more when we get into email marketing later in this segment. So that's TweetDeck. It's a simple, easy to use application. You can customize it a lot. You can change all the colors if you want. You can move these columns around if you want. And I like scheduled updates to be here. And this is my full Facebook newsfeed. This is a column where if anybody's mentioned me on Twitter, I get notified. And this is the whole ball of wax on Twitter, which I, to be honest, rarely look at, but is often useful, interesting. Yeah. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to search the web. This stuff is really straightforward. Once you get used to it, you'll go, it's super simple, super easy. TweetDeck allows you to do other things that I almost never do, by the way. You can, add a location. You can attach a photo. You could record a video. There's all sorts of things that you can do with it. And again, it's a very elegant little application. Good. So with that, we're going to pause again here. And now we're going to get into the meat of the lesson around email marketing.